The typical wild ride we've come to expect from Watkins Glen delivered as it usually does. But while the Glen can be a bit of a toss-up, Road Atlanta is a return to your more traditional fare. That is, if you can reach the finish at this punishing circuit. Let's see who makes the most of our trip to Georgia as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is IMSA driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sometimes referred to as a roller coaster, this place has its fair share of ups and downs. Let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Road Atlanta, the scene of incredible sports car racing for decades and the home to the Petit Le Mans. This is a track that has proven itself to be worthy of attention on a world stage. With it being situated only an hour northeast of Atlanta, Georgia, the circuit is in a prime location. But despite its flagship race, in contrast to the real Le Mans, the full course is a measly 2.5 miles long. The club layouts also clock in at just under 2 miles. Packed within this small lap length is a series of technical and challenging corners, some of which can be race-ending even when small mistakes are made. Turn 1 is a fast sweeper which compresses the car into the track, but the high speeds mean that when you go off, you typically go off in a big way. Turn 3 is notorious for its curved entry into a blind apex. Too far inside and you face a cut course penalty. Too far outside and you're likely to spin out. Then there's the unassuming Turn 5. The wide curving lures you into getting greedy, but the close walls on either side gobble up cars and spit them out as a crumpled heap. With all the tricky fast turns, that's not to say that there aren't passing opportunities. The main one comes at the chicane at the bottom of the backstretch. The huge downhill drop into the turn makes outbraking yourself quite easy though, so be careful. The whole thing wraps up with the frightening final corner. With nothing but a giant wall right to the outside as cars fly through at high speed, it's not often that wrecks are small. Boasting a wide swath of series over its history, everything from NASCAR to Indy Lights and of course IMSA, the main use of the track is SCCA events and driving schools. No wonder this place is popular both in real life and here on the iRacing service. Fans will no doubt get to enjoy many more years of action at this incredible track. Well, Joey, I'm glad I've got you here with me for today's broadcast. You of all people are qualified to talk about what we're up against here today.
Road Atlanta is an amazing circuit, and these Lotus 49s are going to have their hands full out here. Known for a lot of sweeping corners and a lot of hard braking zones. Some areas to note with these specific cars, Turn 1 has a really big sweeping momentum feel, and then also up through Turn 3. I know these cars don't like the curbs that much, and Turn 3 is a popular spot to really jump the curb, so we'll have to see if any competitors get out of shape over there. And then also headed off of the back straightaway into turns 10A and 10B, that heavy brake zone chicane, always a great passing opportunity to watch.
Yeah, I imagine that's where we're going to see most of them out there today. But let's take a look at the championship after the first round, because things are a little bit unusual compared to what we typically see in this series. And up at the top of the standings, it is actually Neil Kemp over Bill Tyler and Teemu Toika, of all people. Mick Claridge, who has returned to competition briefly, is only down in 6th after the first round. Tixier only managed 8th. So you see some of these guys, such as Nieva and Toika and Tyler, a little bit higher up, but they'll have to keep that up over the course of the season. We'll see if that changes here today, as I said, back to a more traditional track compared to the sort of Talladega-esqueness that is Watkins Glen. We also have a F2 Drivers' Championship, Joey, and how's that one?
The F2 Drivers' Championship, the only difference is based on the I rating of these competitors, and right now Glenn Becker leads the way over Timothy Porter. Don Peak, a very familiar name there, sitting in the 3rd place in the F2 Championship. Terry Traumhauser and Andrew Eng round out the top 5, but as you mentioned, this is just after one race, so all of these competitors just kind of getting the momentum in their sails.
Absolutely. As for the Nations Cup, the U.S. is currently leading Finland, with Spain and United Kingdom 3rd and 4th, and then Denmark rounds out your top 5. We'll see if that shuffles around as time goes on. Obviously, a little bit different than what we're used to in most series, which tends to have a teams championship. This is how they did it in 1967, actually, with this car running. They didn't have a teams championship yet in F1, and it was done by nations. So hence why we're following that here. However, let's get our audience familiar with the race details. Joey, how are they going to run this one?
We've mentioned it a couple times. Round 2 of 12 here at Road Atlanta. They're going to be doing 25 laps at this circuit. All of the competitors have been working on their own open setup and no spare car. That's crucial because if they run into any problems, pick up any damage or contact, they are going to have to live with that contact unless they come into the pit lane and get it fixed. Drive-through penalty at 17x, and hopefully we see no disqualifications at 25, although we might see a couple cars get some 1x off tracks, dipping wheels and tires throughout here.
Indeed, although there's not many places where you have any sort of paved runoff, and it's a lot of gravel traps out there. So we'll keep an eye on that. As you can see, our highest rated driver, Sebastian Tixier, has yet to set a time. We'll see if he can get a good one on the board, because right now John Olsen holds the provisional pole at a 1:19.5. So he's got about half a second over Wade Sheedy. It's not a long lap. We'll see if anybody can get any closer than that and make it a bit of competition. Now, Tixier actually missed his first lap, it looks like, so this one's going to be critically important.
These competitors only get 2 laps to really set down a time in order to place themselves on the grid. And you're right, this is important for Tixier here to be able to put down this time. It looks like he is on a flyer out there. He hasn't put a tire wrong. We'll see as he crosses the stripe here what his lap time is going to be. 1:19.74, which is good enough to jump him up to second place.
Looks like Olsen went quicker on his second lap, but only by a couple hundredths of a second. Wade Sheedy did as well and cuts it down to a 19.8. So it's looking a lot more competitive until Mick Claridge comes in and steals the pole from both of them. Toika also crossed and goes up to third. It is in constant flux at the front of the field. And we just about have all 26 cars with a time, and we're just waiting on Grissinger and Porter from here.
Yeah, and I believe I think, yeah, you're right. Grissinger is still to put down a lap time that counts here, and Porter as well. And I think I see a couple cars still on their second flying lap out there, including Mick Claridge, which is going faster than his previous lap.
Oh boy, he's already got 3/10 over Olsen, so he is really on it today. He does not want to let up. Running Ferrari colors on the Lotus as we ride on board with Mick down the backstretch. One thing that always struck me about this car here is that these couple crests don't really mean anything but other cars, but in this one, Joey, it can be a little scary.
The aerodynamic package was very different back when these cars were made compared to what we know now, and you're right, it almost creates a little bit of lift, and any overcrest, little sketchy in these cars.
All right, down into the timing line, and a little bit of a blink. Hopefully that doesn't discount the lap, but it does not. An 18.8 puts him 7/10 ahead of John Olsen. We already saw in the 79s yesterday that things have gotten pretty spread out up there, but even here it's seeming like things are going the way of one driver over the others. Nieva manages to get up into 5th as he should be able to continue a good run here. That tends to be his strength, is consistency. I don't think we have anybody else. No, that is everyone. And it looks like our qualifying is done for the day. So Christmas Eve, and we'll get to have round number 2 in the Grand Prix Legends series. And it looks like Mick Claridge is on the pole. So as John Olsen will start in the second position, Timu Toika will be third, and then Sebastian Tixier starts in 4th today. Jorge Nieva is 5th, followed by Wade Sheedy in P6. Then it's Luca Harrison in 7th. 2 names that we don't see here very often. Glad to see them show up and give this car a go. Neil Kemp will be P8 as David Rossi will start 9th, and Gwen Old begins from the top 10.
In the 11th spot, we have Gary Ho with Jeff Saunders there sharing that 6th row. Paul Wilson in the 13th spot. Michael Grissinger finally was able to put in that lap time, finds himself 14th. Robert Plumley in the 15th position, Rowley Wallbank there in 16th, Christian Eschner, Bjorn Ackerman, Terry Tromhauser, and Andrew Eng round out the top 20.
Don Peak managed to put it in 21st with Isan Ginn in 22nd. After that, it's Andre Bruno 23rd and Doug Nelson 24th. Jan Steffen starts this one 25th, and Timothy Porter never got a lap in. He's going to start from the back of the field here as the clock continues to tick down to 0 to end our qualifying. Pretty good conditions out there today at only 86 Fahrenheit on the track surface itself. Just wanted to clarify that I know we kind of joked about the Don Peak name looking familiar. Yes, there is relation. That is actually my dad that is out there running this morning and has been doing pretty decent in the F2 championship in recent seasons. But this is a track that bites here, Joey. He's going to have to really be on his toes.
Exactly. I think all these competitors are going to have to be on their toes. I was noticing the pretty big difference between the ambient temperature and the track temperature, and it's only about noon here in the sim, so I have a feeling that's going to continue to grow.
No doubt. It looks like we're getting everybody out pretty quickly here on the grid, so we should be going pretty soon. A lot of the front runners taking their time, but looks like our pole sitter is now out there. It's going to be tough because it is a curved and downhill starting grid for part of the field as they come up to the finish line. This is such a unique track in that sense, not usually used for standing starts, not something as common here in the States. So it's going to be a little tough for some of the drivers. We're waiting on Tixier and Plumley to find their way out there, and then we'll be ready to go for today's event. We're only a minute in. They get 2 minutes to try and grid up. So, yeah, everybody really got out there very quickly and are eager to go. I guess they got things to do here on Christmas Eve. Maybe some shopping is left for a few of them. As there goes Tixier onto the grid. So it's only Robert Plumley in the number 11 that we're looking to get ready to take the green flag here in just a moment. There we go. All 26 cars are on the grid. The engines now start to rev as the lights come up here at Road Atlanta, and the green flag is out. It's a very poor start for Wade Sheedy. He goes absolutely nowhere as everybody has to scatter, and someone else dropping. Is that Claridge? That looks like Mick Claridge, who suddenly had a problem there in the second phase. He falls down to 5th. This means John Olsen is now up to the point and takes the lead into turn 3. This is a tricky corner on the first lap. Very blind and very narrow. Somebody is tipped off to the outside, and that looks like Gwen Old, who comes back across the track. A couple cars make contact. It's a bad start for a few drivers here.
A bad start indeed. I was noticing some of our popular drivers like Mick Claridge, also Sebastian Tixier, got a terrible launch. And I'm not sure what's going on right now with these cars, but they're struggling to get up to speed. It looks like we've got Neil Kemp off in turn 6.
Isan Ginn in 5 as well. It is a messy start here for lap 1, but as we come around, Kemp's going to lose more positions down the backstretch where you really need that launch. And we'll see if he can collect it up by the time they get to the braking here into turn 10. Old did get it going, and she lost a number of positions. Didn't quite make out which car she tipped, though, as it looks like Sebastian Tixier has had to take a tow, and so has Gary Ho. Up and over the crest, though, Olsen is under threat. The Finn nicknamed Fat Timu has gone on the chase now and is directly behind the number 3.
Applying pressure for the lead on John Olsen right now when these cars did qualify up front, but, you know, neither are our pole sitter. That's Mick Claridge, found himself in position 4. And, Joe, you touched on Tixier. Tixier and Gary Ho had an incident coming down the S's for the first lap, and they're both out of it right now.
It's a single file affair through there in pretty much every car. I don't know why people keep trying to push the issue through those corners as we look over the shoulder of Timu Toika at John Olsen. How close is he going to be down the backstretch, and how much will the slipstream be worth here?
The slipstream is always worth a good chunk of time, especially because it's so long. Now, these cars, they're kind of a cigar shape, so they're relatively aerodynamic for what they are. They don't punch a huge hole, but even then, I'm looking at the speeds right now. They're doing over 185 miles an hour, Joe.
Yeah, they're a rocket ship in a straight line, so they get going fast quickly. And as they come out of the chicane, nobody's able to make a move here amongst the top runners. But I am seeing a bit of a train start to form. Not just Toyka, but Nieves behind there, and Mick Claridge on the recovery. I'm sure he wants that lead back.
And Teemu Toyka had a little bit of a misstep coming out of the final corner there. Got his left two tires in the grass and in the dirt. Didn't really cost him a bunch of lap time, but let me tell you, that puts your stomach in your throat when that happens.
Looks like David Rossi. Oh, wow. David Rossi's up to 5th. That's one of our F2 drivers. He's passed Luca Harrison this time by. This has been a fantastic run for him. He already had a great qualifying in 9th. So David Rossi really on a tear. Let's see if he can keep Harrison behind him, though, who has a big slide coming out of 5.
Keep the tail in check, which it is sometimes tough to do. These motors are good. The tires, not so much, and you got to be careful with your right foot.
Wade Sheedy is the other one that you saw chasing them, but we're looking at Claridge once again with Nieva just behind. Toyka's under threat here. Jorge's got a big run, but as they come down into the braking, looks like he's backing out, and that's going to open the door for Claridge. He's going to step through and just about has it through the first part of the chicane, finishes the job through the second part.
Really great move by Mick Claridge right there to get up in the 3rd spot. He wasn't even close enough to think about a move on Nieva, but Nieva actually lifted to not run up the back of Toyka. Mick took that as an opportunity, shoved it down in there on the brakes, and now he's sitting in the 3rd spot.
Ooh, in the background, we saw Luca Harrison go a little bit wide off the final corner and has gotten back past Rossi once again, so not sure where that swapped around, but it has within the same lap that it changed here before, and that puts him back up into 5th. Wondering if we might have a calm enough moment to maybe take a look at what happened with Gwen Old there at the start and try and dissect who ran into her there, because it's already lap 4 and she is still going, but I'm not sure who got just a little piece of it and got turned around up through turn 3 as they come out of 7 now in this battle for 5th position. A little bit of a good run from Wade Sheedy as we now check out the replay of the start here. And I can report that Claridge has just gotten by Toyka. We'll go to that in a second, as here is Gwen Old from the start of the race. Started 15th, must have made a bunch of spots.
Got really busy, Joe, right here in the middle of the pack, and turn 3 is always a funnel no matter what car you're racing here at Atlanta.
Yeah, this will be turn 3. Wonder if she got some help here because it's still too wide. Everybody's got to try and sort themselves out. Yep. Oh, popped into the air. And there's not much she can do from there. She is just a passenger. That was Rossi that made contact. And then there's a blue car that's going to come just across her. I couldn't quite make out the number there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and actually just in front of this, right after this, coming down the S's, is when we have that Tixier and Gary Ho incident. So this could have even set that off, as we see here's Tixier and Ho getting into the tire bundle there. And unfortunately, yeah, just too wide down the S's doesn't work. And something I want to draw our attention to right now, Mick Claridge just got a fantastic run out of turn 7 and drafting our leader down the back straightaway.
Wow, he is on an absolute tear now. In fact, he might have the lead as he goes around the outside of John Olsen. Remember, he had a pretty big pace advantage here, but Olsen fights back under braking. He's very shallow into the corner. Can he somehow hold on to this? They're going to make contact, and now Olsen is around, narrowly avoided by Nieva. Can he get it going? He does. He'll fall to 4th, but at least the car is still on the track.
Really unfortunate to see John Olsen get tipped around there. I'm going to call that one a racing incident. They were both side by side into the braking zone, into the first apex, and unfortunately, just a little bit of contact. John Olsen back to 4th place, though. Looks like he is going the right direction.
I'm sure it was fun while it lasted for John, leading up at the front. Oh, and David Rossi, we spoke too soon. First corner, off into the gravel. That is a very fast right-hand turn there, and I think he had a little help if we could catch the replay here.
Looking back here, they're going to be coming down the front straightaway, going into turn one. Yeah, Rossi just kind of gets run over the back of from that's the number 7 Wade Sheedy out there. I'm not sure if he just braked earlier, just a misjudgment, but unfortunately the 12 off into the gravel.
Remember, Wade had a bit of a poor start, so he might be slightly out of position here. That puts him back up where he began in 6th with that move. As we come into turn 6 with the 12 car of David Rossi back on the circuit in 12th position. And that's Traumahauser behind, Eschner and Gwen Old. So a lot of people that are on recoveries here. Somebody off course or offline. That looks like Terry. Yeah, that's the 20 that's just kind of pulling off to the side. Maybe doesn't want to fight this as Gwen has a good shot. And Christian does not defend. She goes down to the inside, down into the chicane. Is the job done at the first apex? Indeed it is.
He is driving on a mission right now. She came so close to pulling out over Eschner there. Got the great opportunity hard into the brakes. Up into 13th spot. We'll see how much further she can climb because we're only about a third of the way into this race so far.
Yeah, she's still 3 spots down. Remember, she started in 10th, so 13th is at least doing decent up there. The number 4 of Teemu Tsoika. Can he hold on to Mick Claridge? He's known for being pretty quick over in the Camel Series in the past here on the Global Sim Racing channel, but we've started to see him show up over here on the 49s from time to time. Wonder if he'll become a bit more of a regular, and can he challenge the man who is the winningest driver and has the most championships here in the Grand Prix Legend Series?
Regulars, and when you talk about regulars with these cars, they really are car specific because it's so interesting to drive these cars. You have to spend so much seat time in this specific car to really get the hang of it, and then start to race it up here at the front. Those are two totally different things, and it just requires a lot of practice.
Absolutely. And Teemu seems to have put his laps in here as he's keeping up with Claridge pretty well. He's only about 6/10 behind, but the long term will put paid to that and see if that is true pace between the pair of them. There you can see the last lap, about 2/10 off. If that keeps up, he will fall off pretty quickly, but it could be a little bit of an ebb and flow here.
I'm pretty impressed with Jorge Nieva as well. We've been talking about these two up front, Mick Claridge and Teemu, but Jorge's just kind of hanging out in third place, about a second and a half back from the front two leaders, and he's turning identical lap times, 19.5s as our front two, so don't count him out, especially if the front two start to battle.
Yeah, Jorge's actually been a very fun watch over the years here on the Grand Prix Legend Series. He went from fighting in the F2 championship just a couple years ago to winning that championship and getting promoted up into the F1 championship. Now he's been pretty consistently in the hunt for podiums and occasionally a win as well. Behind them, though, it looks like Olsen and Harrison have a bit of a battle for 4th. And unfortunately for John Olsen, Harrison just took that spot. I wonder if there's any damage on the 3 car.
Good question, and it looked like Harrison did the exact same move that Mick Claridge did, except John left a little bit more room this time. He was still pretty crowded down there towards 10A, but he definitely learned and unfortunately finds himself in the 5th spot, but the battle goes on there for the 4th position.
Yeah, he's staying with him. Car, I'm not seeing any visual damage because that was my big question mark is there anything bent up that would slow him down in a straight line, because you really need that obviously on that backstretch, but it doesn't really look like it. If he is experiencing any damage, it would likely be some sort of suspension or steering damage, and that'll be tricky through the first part of the lap, no doubt, but it's handling fine from this blimp view for now. Let's see what it looks like down the backstretch as they pick up speed once again.
I think this has been John Olsen's weakest point of the racetrack, which in my opinion is the most important corner leading out onto the longest straightaway. He gets a very poor run on the traction coming out of there, and you see it suffer all the way down the back straightaway here.
Yeah, maybe that's really what's hurting him there. Just doesn't have the car set up for it. Again, very shallow into there. Maybe taking a bit of an ambitious look coming down into the chicane, and that hurt him on the exit as well. It's now grown about 0.8 of a second, unfortunately, from there. And the same deal has happened up with Claridge and Toyka. It's up to 1.2. So, yeah, Mick is looking like he's starting to be able to run away from that one as we look at Rolly Wallbank as he tries to chase on David Rossi. Rolly's up 4 positions. Rossi is down 2.
And Joe, I want to go back and talk to that point, that early entry in turn A. Another thing we talked about is these cars coming on the back straightaway, they really lift the front nose, so they get a lot of understeer. And if John Olsen does not have the car handling like how he wants to, he could just find himself over on the left side of the racetrack.
That's a good point. Yeah, it tends to want to drift there. You point this car in a direction, and it's going to go that direction and have a hard time trying to change it, typically, as we watch the 16 up and over the crest here. Rolly carrying on and trying to see if he can catch up to Rossi. We mentioned Don Peak as well, and the number 24. He's had a pretty good race, as well as the decent qualifying that he showed. He's up 5 positions and is currently ahead of Andrew Ang by about half a second. That's a lapped car that they're going by. No, that's Timothy Porter.
Ang. That was Ang that had the problem in turn 6 there. It looks like he just ran out wide and then just kind of gathered it back up, but lost a couple positions from that.
Timothy in one of our favorite paint schemes in this series, the Netscape paint scheme. And he comes down into the chicane, now in 17th, looking to try and catch up to Don Peak. We still have 25 of our 26 starters. Only Tixier has retired. Ho repaired the car after 12 minutes in his back out. Ackerman and Saunders had to have brief repairs and are on the track, but only 22 are on the lead lap right now. Porter up 9 spots. Remember, he failed to set a qualifying time, so he's trying to go as high up as he can from the very back of the field. Meanwhile, as we come back around to Olsen, well, yeah, the pace just does not seem to be there. So I do start to suspect that there is something wrong with the car, since he seemed pretty decent on pace up at the front of the field earlier. Now he's lost touch with Harrison.
It can be really easy to dig yourself into a deep hole out there, Joe, when you're a driver and you're just getting a couple corners wrong. And that's what I'm seeing out of John Olsen is that he's driving great. He's actually making up time through the majority of the racetrack on Luca Harrison in front of him. But when he gets to turn 7, he just gets a terrible run out, which then costs him 2 or 3 tenths, which kills his momentum.
Watching Neil Kemp here, who's having a few connection problems. Remember, he came into this our championship leader, but is running 7th right now, a gain of 1 from where he began today. Let's see if he can get up to Wade Sheedy and challenge him for that 6th spot. He's got about a second to do that. But back to Mick Claridge, our pole sitter and now leader after a brief foray back a few positions down. Just a reminder for those that haven't seen it, we have a series starring Mick as he has been attempting to ride around the world on his bike. Obviously, he's not doing that right now, and you'll see a bit of more information of why that's the case in this latest episode uploaded yesterday. So go check that out. Where is Mick? Episodes every other Friday here on the Global Sim Racing channel.
Always fun to watch his escapades around the world. And right now he's just kind of hooked up. Instead of a bike, he looks a little bit more on some railroad tracks out there because nothing is phasing him. I just saw 119.2, only a tenth off of his fastest lap so far.
Yeah, he is looking mighty quick out there. And in fact, that wasn't even his fastest lap. He hit a 19.1 at one point earlier. I'm guessing some slipstream helped with that. There you can see the difference in time. Wow, 9/10 of a second faster that last one over Toyka. Claridge is just putting him in. And Toyka is kind of on his lonesome. Nieva's been hovering around behind him, but I don't think he's catching up very quickly. There he is now, looking to add another to his tally of podiums. Well, actually, and let me check the stat sheet because I'm curious how many he has racked up at this point.
And to go back to the front there, I think Timu is either having a couple problems with his car recently because his pace seems to be falling off. Mick Claridge, we talked about that really fast lap of 119.2, but Jorge Nieva in third place of 119.5. Timu Toika, second place, is the odd man out, 120.2. So he's definitely off pace. I'll have to see as he comes around here for this next lap if he picks it back up. Another 120.2 in comparison to our leader, 119.5. Jorge Nieva, though, with a bad lap time, 121. So it looks like these cars might be running into some lap traffic that is definitely throwing a wrench in the strategy out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. With it being such a short lap around here, even 26 cars tends to cause a little bit of a clog, as that was John Steven, who just pulled off the circuit briefly to let through our third place driver. Also, apologies. I guess my memory is wrong. I could have sworn Jorge Nieva had taken a surprise win at some point. He has not, and he does only have one podium so far to his name. That was, I believe, at Zolder, and that part I do remember seeing at some point as Olsen got by Harrison. What happened here? This happened very suddenly. I wonder if there was a mistake from Luca.
It looks like this lap right now, Luca Harrison is a good couple of seconds off of his fast lap. I don't know if there was maybe some lap cars or traffic got in the way. We're going to take a look at the replay. Oh, no. Coming through turn 5 off of those curbs. Joe, I mentioned it. Curbs are so tricky in these cars, but great save. Oh, my goodness.
Very fast hands drifting it through the corner there. So Luca Harrison doing a fantastic job, at least holding on to 5th in the process, because that could have been race over right there with that one. I've always felt like, Joey, turn 5 at Road Atlanta is one of the most underrated corners in all of racing, just because it is so punishing. And frankly, it's scary even in the sim. I can't imagine in real life.
It is an incredibly technical corner, not only how you have to set it up and approach it, but also the rolling speed you have to carry through the apex, and then also the monster truck off-road that you got to go jumping over the curbs there to really commit on the gas on exit. It's a great corner, and trust me, it's one of my nemesises out there. I've spun plenty of times at turn 5.
Nemesi. I don't know what. I don't know what the plural is. Honestly, I'll have to look that up. As Harrison still close to the back of John Olsen. That's Doug Nelson. That is a lapped car behind them. So that's not for position. It's just this fight for P4 just outside of the podium. And we're coming down to 10 laps to go here in a second. So they're whittling away pretty quickly. Harrison's going to have to get back on the horse if he wants to try and overtake Olsen, especially now that John probably knows the tricks of Luca.
I always say, take the notepad out, take notes, and you're right. Luca has kind of been on the back of him. He was in front of him. And I think he's noticed that John Olsen has a few weak points. But remember, John Olsen's been one of our fastest cars. He was leading out front. There's no reason why he can't get back up there.
As Neil Kemp is also back up to Wade Sheedy. We asked whether or not he could do it. He gave us a yes. So what's he do from here? Can he get the run out of 7 on one of these laps? Or can he be sneaky and find another place where he can get a mistake out of car number 7? As they come through the S's up to turn 5. This is where we saw Luca Harrison make his off track, but they're not going to go off this time, although it's a little slow for Neil as he looked kind of timid through that uphill left-hander.
Oh no, it looks like Don Peak is off. I had kept my eye on this battle. He was up in 16th, battling out with Trumhauser and Porter, and gonna check a replay. Unfortunately, what happened to the number 24 machine? Joe, it just looks like too much throttle coming up and over the crest. That's wheel spin.
Yep, it's easy. Unfortunately, in sim racing, can't really feel the car, and you can't always tell what it's doing until it's too late. And in this thing, when that happens, you're going for a ride. Thankfully, didn't hit anything. He's back down to 18th, unfortunately. So some of that hard work has been undone, but the race isn't over as you see him carry on through turn 5 right now. But we've got Neil Kemp now back on screen, still working on Wade Sheedy as we come through turn 1 up to 3, and he's getting ever closer. He's starting to fill the mirrors of Wade.
Up over turn 3 and then coming down through the S's, one of the most iconic parts of Road Atlanta, coming down these S's here. And then Through that tricky turn 5 where we just saw a spin a couple laps ago, looks like both of these cars make it up and over the apex curbs, over the exits, and Joe, that leads us down into turn 6 and turn 7. I've talked so much about turn 7. It's all in the exit coming out of this next right-hander and how you get your throttle down that sets you up onto this long straightaway.
Andre Bruno going to stay off to the side. Great work there from the 18, not wanting to interrupt this battle. But for Neil Kemp, it's not good news. He could have used that slipstream to try and chase down Wade because he's lost touch big time. It's back up to 0.5 of a second after he spent much of the lap just hovering around that gearbox. So he'll have to gather it back up and get to the rear of him again. It's always one thing to catch a car. It's another to pass him, especially here, because you keep pointing out, Joey, you got to be fast in the right places.
Absolutely. You know, of course, you have to be fast over the course of the entire racetrack. But when it comes down to racing, you have to capitalize on the most specific, best areas. And there's only a couple corners on the racetrack, on each racetrack that is. And here, that's turn 7, definitely.
And unfortunately for Gwen Old, that's where she just had a mistake going a little wide. Didn't go off track at 7, but lost a chunk of time to Rolly Wallbank, who she was chasing. This battle between Rossi and now Grissinger is getting interesting. Rossi, who got punted off track a little bit earlier, catching up to the 13. Did something just happen to Mick Claridge? He's not on track. I'm checking to see if he had an incident. No, it's connection. Internet connection problems.
You know, I've seen Mick blink a couple times. Specifically, if you remember, Joe, we were covering that qualifying lap and he blinked out. So I think he might just be playing with his internet connection a little bit.
I hope it solidifies. I'd hate to see him lose it in that fashion, especially after he missed out on the win last time at Watkins Glen. And we got a replay pulled up here. This is for Luca Harrison. We're hearing that he may have gone off or had a slip up somewhere. Let's see. Down into the chicane. Whoa! Oh, he keeps it on the black stuff, though. At least he did that, but man, he went deep.
It is so tricky when you get in too deep to try to recover that. And then, another big moment there coming out onto the front straightaway. And let me tell you, that's really tricky because you're 100% throttle. And here's the big moment where he lost all the lap time, going way off track in turn 1, but thankfully not around.
Wow, it just kind of compiled. At first he goes deep, then he goes off track, and then he fully flies completely way into the weeds. So I wonder if maybe he was getting a little flustered trying to overdrive the car or something. At least he didn't hit anything, and he is still in 5th. Didn't lose a spot to Wade Sheedy. Back to the number 12 of David Rossi versus Michael Grissinger. Coming up into turn 7. Is this close enough that David's going to get the slipstream?
I think it is, and I think that David Rossi's actually been faster the last few laps. He's just been patient and trying to pick out his moment where he has to try to pass Grissinger, and right now he's got an excellent opportunity with the slipstream down the back straightaway.
Here he goes, going to look to the inside. Late defense there from Grissinger, and then fades it back to the racing line. Misses the apex slightly. Rossi sees it. As the sun comes out, he's going to try and see if he could use that to his advantage down the front stretch. You can see passes into turn 1. If you're brave, he carries a lot of speed through the final turn. Doesn't look like he's got the momentum that he needs, though.
I know that Rossi has had quite a few incidents so far this race, and I'm really impressed to see him get all the way tucked up right under the back of Grissinger, but still keep his head on his shoulders. He didn't shove a move down there that he didn't need to, and look at how close these competitors are.
You said he was faster, and I'd say this is a good illustration of such, as he's climbing all over the back of Michael now. But he loses some time up through turn 5. If he could get that close once again, coming out of 7, he'll be sitting pretty. And we saw last time he had just about enough slipstream to go in the attack last time. And he's looking even closer this time through. Up to 7, right across the curb, just glancing it. This looks fantastic for the 12.
The last 2 laps, he takes an excellent line through turn 7, much better than Grissinger up front of him. And look at this, Joe. He's officially side by side going down the back straightaway. It puts him in a bad zone going into the braking zone, but this is online. We'll see if he lunges it in deep. Looks like he's going to wait another lap for a new opportunity.
Oh, but he could get the over-under here as he comes off with that wider exit off the second half of the chicane, but there's just no space up and over the crest into the final turn. Maybe right here, once again, looking very strong, coming off of the corners where he needs to be, thinking about it down into one, but then thinks better of it.
This is a great battle, and it's all for the 10th spot. This is the final top 10 position here between Rossi and Grissinger as we're running out of laps, really.
Yeah, we've only got 4 to go here. The 21 of the 25 done. And this is where we keep seeing Rossi just be able to outrun Michael there down through the S's, out from 3 and 4 towards 5. And then from 5 to 6, he sticks with it. So last time he had to put himself off onto the right-hand side. Is he going to be able to manage to sneak in an opening on the left-hand side, or is he going to be forced wide once again?
Really, actually, a pretty even run out of both of the cars through turn 7. We've got a lapped car in front of him that's kind of be right in that funnel of this kink on the back straightaway. Though it looks like both cars should be able to clear him, although it's going to go side by side into the brake zone. This is when the pass is going to happen between Grissinger and Rossi, but oh no, Rossi gets pushed out on 10B.
Yeah, and he just gathers it up in time that it doesn't spin, but that may have cost him the chance. We're down to 4 laps to go, and he's got to make up about 2 seconds to catch up to Grissinger, plus deal with the lap traffic in the meantime. Neil Kemp a little bit ahead of them.
Grissinger just went off in turn 1. It was mistake from Rossi in turn 10, mistake from Grissinger in turn 1.
I still see him about 1.8 seconds ahead, so he must not have lost a whole lot of time there. Oh, no, it wasn't Grissinger. It was the lap car of Bruno.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. There was that lap car in between, and that was my miscall right there.
Sometimes there's a lot to keep track of in these races. We've come over to Wade Sheedy with Neil Kemp just in front of him. And the number 5 under threat here for 6th position. Wade down 1. Kemp up 2. A little deep there from the 5 as we're going to take a look at the replay. I think this is from Bruno. Oh, that's Sheedy. Oh, this is what put him in the position. He was ahead of Kemp. Excuse me.
And actually, Sheedy's taking a look down the inside of turn 1 right now on Kemp. They're battling 2 wide through turn 1. Headed up into turn 3. This is that big funnel point, and it looks like Sheedy is through on Kemp. Never mind. We're going to have contact in turn 3.
Huge pop into the air for Kemp. Thankfully, it lands right side up, but the car might be damaged from that as Wade Sheedy is able to get it going first. Looks like Kemp is still pointed forwards. Look at the damage on the nose of the car. Hopefully the suspension is okay. He had all 4 wheels in the air.
He did, and I really thought that Sheedy had the position, but these cars are just so tricky up over the crest, Joe, just like the back straightaway. I think he lost the nose, and that gave Kemp the opportunity.
I wonder if we could get an onboard with Kemp for this replay, because I'd love to see. These cars do get airborne at a couple tracks, so it's not entirely foreign to these guys, but not at this track. And the California driver gives space there on the right-hand side. He knows he's there. He's trying to race fairly, but race as hard as he can as our camera magically moves to the right, and then boom, up into the air.
And it's such a funnel point there at turn 3, Joe. No matter where you are on the racetrack, if you're on driver's right, you have to hustle the car over driver's left. And you see here is the number 7 machine, Wade Sheedy. He's way over driver's right. He's got to get it slowed down in just a funnel where these two meet.
Yeah. Turn 3, it just does not work side by side, and 9 times out of 10. And in this case, it really went wrong for Neil Kemp, unfortunately. But we're coming down to the white flag here for Mick Claridge, I believe. He has got a handy lead of about 9 seconds over Teemu Toika. There you can see on board as that is the lapped car of Andrew Ang just in front of him, currently running 17th. Shouldn't be that much of a hindrance here. In fact, I expect Andrew's going to, just slow and let him through.
Good sportsmanship right there. Always great to see on the racetrack when you see a faster car, especially the lead car behind you. You know, you pull over, let them by. Let them know that you're not going to cause any issues out there for his race.
So should be able to just cruise home to a first victory of the season. Not sure if this will give him the points lead, though, since he was a bit down. It'll depend on what happens with Kemp from here. He's going to finish 7th. Actually, he might, because Claridge finished 6th last race, so he should be able to edge him. And as we come around 6, here we see, is this Kemp here on screen? Yes, it is. So the 5 car who was leading the points coming into this race might not be so coming out of round 2.
Yeah, a couple different tales to tell from this race, but one thing to note is that Mick Claridge looks like he's going to hang on to this one. We are on our final lap, Joe, and this is the leader coming through 10A, 10B for the final time.
Claridge started on the pole, but he didn't lead every lap. Whatever cost him the lead at the start, he made up for it and then some, and gets victory here today in Georgia.
Great race from Mick Claridge. I know that he started on pole, didn't have the launch that he wanted, but ultimately crawled his way back up to the top of the mountain and claims victory as we watch several of these other competitors finish out the race.
Yeah, but with his second ever podium, Olson's got to be disappointed in himself. Looks like he did get the pace back together by the end and finished 4th and was way ahead of Luca Harrison, but it was not meant to be, as David Rossi's fighting with Michael Grissinger as they come down to the line. Can he perform the undercut? Not quite. Looks like Grissinger is going to hold him off.
It's a great race between Grissinger and Rossi over the last 10 laps here. Looks like Grissinger is going to hang on to that final 10th top 10 position.
Yep, and 16 drivers are going to wind up on the lead lap, including Timothy Porter, who's going to be the last one to finish 16th, a climb of 10. That's going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews after this, so don't go away. Welcome back to Road Atlanta. It was a fun Christmas Eve here with the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series, and Mick Claridge took the win, but look at that start. You almost thought that maybe he wasn't going to be able to get back up there in time. Eventually, he fought his way back to the lead and trounced the field by about 8.5 seconds. Teemu Toika followed him home dutifully in second as Jorge Nieva gets his second ever podium after qualifying fifth. Got to think more of those should be on the way for him as John Olsen finished P4. After that, Luca Harrison was fifth today and Wade Sheedy came in and finished sixth. Neil Kemp, P7, was followed by Robert Plumley from 15th to 8th. Nicely done, sir. And Paul Wilson wound up 9th. Michael Grissinger got a top 10 today.
Then you got David Rossi in the 11th spot, locked in that battle with Grissinger that we were covering there. Gwen Old finds herself crawling her way back up to the 12th position after those lap 1 incidents that we saw in turn 3. Rolly Wallbank there in 13th, Christian Eschner 14th, Terry Tromhauser rounding out the top 15 there. Tim Porter with a great run, up 10 spots from not putting in that qualifying time, finds himself 16th. Andrew Eng in 17th. Don Peak with that unfortunate issue comes home 18th. Hassan Jin 19th. And Douglas Nelson in the 20th position.
Jan Stephen was in 21st and Jeff Saunders 22nd. From there, it was mostly DNFs as drivers had a little bit of a bad day towards the back end of the field. We said it was a punishing track, and it certainly proved so, but not quite so for Mick Claridge, who did get a bit of punishment, but only for a bad start. Mick, let's start there. What happened off the line that you lost the lead?
That was good, wasn't it? Yeah. I got quite in the last night's race, John was second on the grid and he got me into turn 1, and it was just literally because of first gear ratio. So I went down. I went a bit lower today, and I wasn't expecting it to just give a false neutral. But yeah, I mean, talk about panic mode. I mean, you really have to. I mean, for the guys in the Audi GTO, waiting for a gear to be selected in that car is horrendous. And it's not so bad in the 49. You just let the revs drop. Don't put your foot on the accelerator again. Don't do it. No, let it drop, and it will go in gear. So you really have to just wait. And then, got it in gear, and it actually went in second. So I was really happy because I thought it was going to go in third. But yeah, good fun at the start, mate.
And eventually you were able to pass the other drivers and get back to the front. But one interesting thing about this is that you took a win and Neil Kemp took a win, but Neil finished 7th today and you finished 6th at Watkins Glen. So by my math, you're going to be just narrowly in the points lead after this round.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah, the plan is to do the whole season and obviously try and go for it. So yeah, happy with that.
That is, unless Teemu Toika has more. I'll have to do the math on that and double check, because I did see that he got a third and a second. I know that you're hoping to stick around a little bit more, but we just saw another episode go up about your adventures trying to travel the world around your bike. You excited to have people get a little bit closer to up to speed on that here soon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got another leaving date now, so leaving on the 4th of February, back across Europe again. Going to try and meet another few guys on the way through. A couple of the guys that I missed, and a couple of new guys that have signed up. So there's going to be a bit more t-shirt signing. And the capital of Turkey, Joe, isn't Istanbul, it's Ankara. I found out.
Hey, as a commentator, we're always bound to make mistakes, so you can be forgiven. Congratulations on the win, sir, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
That was Mick Claridge taking the victory here at Road Atlanta. Finishing second today, Teemu Toika, as I said, might actually be the points leader instead of Mick, but we're not sure yet. Joey's caught up with Teemu.
Great run, Teemu finishing in the 2nd position. You actually qualified 3rd, but talk me through that start. You got a great launch, and it didn't look like Claridge got off the line very good.
Yeah, it actually kind of surprised me how well I got off the line this time, and how well Mick didn't get off line this time. And I was surprised to be in P2 after turn 1, but it was very clear that Mick was the fastest car on track this time.
Well, you actually bring me to my next question here, Teemu. You were following the leader at the time, which was John Olsen, and then like you said, Mick Claridge was able to catch up and pass you guys. But once Mick went by you, you actually held on to him for quite a long time. Did you feel that maybe if you caught into some traffic, you had something for him?
Well, in the best case scenario for me, maybe. But I knew that if he has to go through traffic, I also have to go through traffic. And he's more experienced going through traffic in these cars, so it was always going to be an uphill battle. But you have to stay positive when you are P2 hunting down the leader, and never give up hope. But this time it just wasn't effective.
Well, looking at the first couple of races, pretty traditional racetracks, Teemu. Watkins Glen last week, Road Atlanta this week. Looking forward to the next one. It looks like Chicago is next on the schedule, which it can't be more different with the street circuit. What do you feel about heading into there?
Well, it's definitely going to be a challenge since I haven't even tried out the track, so it will be definitely a big challenge for me, getting to learn the track and the combo, the car track combo. So it will be difficult for me to keep the second place streak going, but we'll give it a go.
Well, Teemu, congratulations on the second place. Happy holidays over there. And before I let you go, is there anybody that you want to say hi to?
Well, I'd like to thank my own stream viewers and the broadcast viewers for sticking around during holidays, and thank you broadcast team, and thank you my competitors for a fair race, and thank you all, and happy holidays.
That was our second place finisher, Teemu Toika, and I believe we have one more, which is Tim Porter standing by with Joe.
Indeed, finished 16th, but that doesn't take into account that he started from the back of the field. Was the Netscape car put there intentionally, Tim, or did you mess up qualifying somehow? Oh, and thought we had Tim with us. Let's see if we can pull him in here. Tim, this is Joe with GSRC. You got a copy?
Hello, Joe. Hello.
There we go. Now we got you. We noticed that you started from the back of the field, but I didn't see a lap time put in. Did you start there intentionally, or did you mess up qualifying?
Oh, I blew both of my laps. I was taking it easy, I was trying to be careful because this track is tricky, and I always get myself into trouble when I do that because I start doing stuff that I don't normally do that keeps me on track. So when I take it easy, maybe I don't brake as hard, I don't turn in as early, and I frigged it up. So I ended up not starting at the back, which is okay. It's a safe spot to start. You can see the collisions, in lap one that allowed me to get by. I picked up quite a number of positions that way, so I took it easy on the start. It turned out being good for me, actually, starting back there. So, that's the way things go.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd say you did a pretty good job bringing it around to a decent result. Ideally, if you had qualified, what do you think the ultimate position you would have aimed for would have been?
Oh, I think I only would have had a few extra spots. I was chasing some boys there, Trauma Shower and Christian Exner, when they were towards the end of the race. They were fighting, and I was chasing them, and I just couldn't. I was at pace with them, and I would have picked up maybe one or two spots. So maybe starting at the back gave you maybe not the truer picture of what I was capable of, but I like this track. It's tricky, but we go way back, this track and I, so I was happy to be here, and I had a good run.
Now, next time out, you might want to actually start from the back because we're going to the Chicago street circuit. Have you had a chance to try that place in this car yet?
Yes, I have, and it is scary. It's a racetrack, which is all fun and good, but the walls are so close, man. Starting at the back, I think will definitely be beneficial. I'll be able to just stop and wait for the carnage to finish before I start putting her down and maybe putting a lap in. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a challenge, but it'll be fun nonetheless.
All right. Well, best of luck when you get there, Tim, and thanks for coming to chat with us. Great drive today.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, have a great week. great holiday.
Yeah, happy holidays to you as well. That was Tim Porter. They're finishing 16th. So with that, we're going to let everybody in the Grand Prix Legends Series go and celebrate Christmas or whichever holiday they choose as we close up with a big thank you to the community for bringing us on for another season of coverage. Also, thanks to the team today, Rob, Joey, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. As we mentioned, the next race heads off to the Windy City for the Chicago Street Circuit, Saturday, December 31st on New Year's Eve at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here, including the Camel GT Series going to the brand new Manny Core. That'll be at noon Eastern today. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.